History is the best witness to the reasonableness of pessimism. It might conceivably be shown that in the development of civilization there are periods when the apparent contradiction inherent in things imperiously commands attention. The joyousness of pre-Socratic Greece or of Elizabethan England is seldom of long duration. One generation accepts life as a fact, the next must needs frame a theory of it. Loss of contentment usually accompanies reflection, and then heart-searchings begin. But while this might be proved true of epochs, its application to individuals carries greater conviction, chiefly because more evidence can be led. Similar ages do not recur so frequently as similar men, and in the particular seems more easy to understand than the general, in spite of the Platonic saying, the state is the individual writ large. Even the happiest times have seldom lacked a Diogenes. The long roll of history furnishes a succession of prophets, saints and poets, for whom the prevalence of pain and sin was an insoluble or overwhelming mystery. The writer of Job, whose days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle and are spent without hope, and the author of Ecclesiastes, who saw no profit under the sun, had a fellow plaintiff, a contemporary perhaps, in the farther east. Kapila, the Brahman evolution philosopher, announced that the complete cessation of pain, which is of three kinds, is the complete end of man. At a later time, and under widely different circumstances, Stoic and Epicurean optimism gave way beneath the pressure of events. Suicide ended the wise man's quest for freedom. Once more, Gnosticism, concurring in the Platonic notion that matter is necessarily accompanied by evil, gave birth to the curious doctrine of God's fall. The whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain, because the Creator, by his very act of creation, committed sin. Manichaeism and Augustinianism, each in its own way, sought to explain or to eliminate evil. The so-called dualism of medieval civilization was largely due to a protest against the world and the ills inseparable therefrom, and its implied conclusion that, if creation was a blunder, procreation is a crime, strangely foreshadowed some of the latest pessimistic deductions. But, cull illustrations as one may, the heart affliction and pitiful uncertainty on which despondency battens did not assert themselves unmistakably till the 18th century was nearing its dramatic close. Rousseau was the herald of widespread movement. His reveries reveal a mental state through which many have since passed. Sensibility becomes morbid, egoism determined to be self-sustained, nature willing itself unnatural. These were his birthright and his legacy. Proclaiming himself the best of men, Rousseau deemed himself the most miserable. Yet he put forth no effort to discover his own contribution to his despair. It is easy to set about reforming the universe, but the reformer has need first to consider his personal state. Self-sophistication, with its attendant vanity, constituted Rousseau's importance as the initiator of the Byronic school. The individualism of the French Revolution was beforehand with it in him. His sorrow and self-praise, his broken-hearted peace, and his greed of that approval which the world did not then know how to give, form the insoluble contradictions of his life. Continually looking for himself in the wrong place, as it were, he has constantly found that he was in bondage to the gene and subjection which were insupportable to him. Little wonder that he waxed wroth with the world and struggled to deliver himself from ill by striving to annul irritating but inevitable limitations of human life. He would have lost his significance had he been able to make Leopardi his confession. I perceived that the more I isolated myself from men and confined me to my own little sphere, the less I succeeded in protecting myself from the discomforts and sufferings of the outer world. Rousseau was either too introspective or not enough to apprehend this. The French Revolution, which but embodied his doctrines in practice, was scarce well over. Its wild dreams of an unobtainable freedom had hardly been dispelled ere the disease of the age began to reassert itself, not indeed with fresh symptoms, but for new causes. Byron in England, Leopardi in Italy, de Musset, Baudelaire, Gautier, and Le Condilile in France, Heine in Germany, Lenaire in Hungary, Pushkin in Russia, bore witness to widespread unrest. The hoped-for heaven upon earth could be found nowhere, and these writers gave utterance to the universal disappointment. Differences among them there certainly were, from the self-obtrusion of Byron to the impersonality of Le Condilile, but one and all protest against the impassable barriers to intellectual satisfaction raised by human imperfection. The studied impassiveness, which so many now deem essential to art, especially to literary art, is only another phase of Byron's Implora Eterna Quiete. I hope that whosoever may survive me, and shall see me put in the foreigner's burying ground at the Lido, will have those two words and no more put over me, Implora Pace. Statuesque impassibility amid human woes and the peace of the tomb are impracticable ideas. Born of the so-called unintelligible, they reduce not one whit the intelligibility of things. Sentimental pessimism, whether in Ferrara 70 years ago or in Paris today, seeks to assuage grief by the grievous. Repression is without pity, and the peace of death is no anodyne for the sorrow of life.